Officers for the Société de Transport de Montréal, also known as STM officers, will be getting constable status in July. This means they can arrest anyone suspected of criminal offense and take them to the police. With public concern over increased powers, City Councillor and President of the Public Security Commission, Alex Norris, says that STM officers will be able to issue fines, but do not have the same powers as police. Recently, a video went viral showing what many describe as STM officers using excessive force against a black trans woman. The officers say she passed the turnstiles without pain and refused to identify herself. They then physically restrained her, with one of the officers later stating that the woman bit him. In the video, one of the officers is seen punching her, with the other STM officer sitting on her legs. An investigation by the STM concluded that officers used appropriate force. Norris said that the results were met with skepticism, as the investigation was conducted internally.
There have been a number of incidents in the metro that involved, allegations of excessive use of force. And the problem was that these allegations were exclusively investigated internally within the STM. So it was felt that there needed to be greater accountability and provision made for independent investigations of these allegations when incidents such as this occur. And so by having their powers redefined and being accorded special constable status, the goal is not to replace police or to arm them with additional weapons of any kind.
STM officers will also be able to intervene in suspected situations of harassment and access databases that are reserved for police. Norris says extra training will be required before STM officers are granted constable status.
They're going to be trained on the extent and limitations of their powers, on their accountability, how they will be held accountable before, or can be held accountable for their actions before the Police Ethics Board and the Bureau des Enquêtes Indépendantes. There is a significant additional training that they're being given before being given these new powers.
An online petition opposing STM officers getting constable status has gained over 18,000 signatures, citing brutal force that was used by STM officers in 2019. The petition stated that people living in Montreal should be able to use public transportation without fear of being harassed, arrested, or confronted with other attacks on their privacy and autonomy. In 2019, STM officers carried out a brutal intervention against Juliano Gray, a black man who was pinned to the ground and beaten with batons by the officers. Gray was targeted after not paying his fare.
As soon as I was on the floor, I got 4 elbows on the face, and that's when I understood that it wasn't like a typical arrest. It was just like, it was a distortion of we didn't understand each other. I wasn't trying to make them look bad, but it was brutal and excessive force. I haven't seen that in a while, and I wish I was the last one in Montreal to be hurt like that.
In Montreal, officers are nearly 5 times more likely to stop and question a Black, Indigenous, or Arab person compared to a white person. Foniemi, Executive Director for the Center for Research Action on Race Relations, also known as CRAR, feels that the decision to provide constable status for STM officers was rushed.
Members of the public, concerned public, we were never consulted, we were never made aware. We expected this would be some sort of a discussion paper, a public consultation. We have to look at the justification to give public servants additional state powers to arrest, and certain powers, of special constables, because with great powers, there should come with great responsibility, as well as greater accountability. And we're not sure that we see that measure of accountability and responsibility yet.
Niemi says the ability to have an external investigation is a positive outcome. But constable status doesn't need to be granted to provide this.
Especially the STM has been going through a very, very difficult budgetary sort of restraints because of COVID-19. So how much does this change cost? There are ways to conduct an internal, independent, impartial, and credible investigation into complaints of riders against the inspectors, metro inspectors, without giving them that special constable status.
So how can BIPOC transit riders feel more safe while using Montreal's public transportation?
Change won't happen unless the people demand it and ask for change, ask for reform. And the first area of reform should be in the appointment of the directors, in the appointment of the board of directors of the STM. Right now, the board is so unrepresentative of the ridership of the people of the city. It's very shameful. And those who are responsible for creating a board of directors that are so unrepresentative and so elite, should be held accountable during election time. We have a board that does not reflect the diversity, the racial and ethnic diversity of the city. We have board directors that don't represent the riders. The wrong starts at the top.